How do you get those top grades in science at both GCSE and A-level? What is it that those people who consistently get high marks know that you don't know? Trying to explain to someone how to get high marks in your GCSE and A-levels is not an easy task. For most people it comes natural, and so trying to pinpoint the actual things that make someone succeed in their GCSEs and get those high A stars, hang on, level 8s or 9s now, really important that. A level 8 or 9 is much better than saying an A star for some reason, so that's what we're going with. Unless you're in Wales, of course, which, you know, still uses the normal scale. So I'm going to have a look in this video at the tips that I would give you if you were aiming for those A star, or if you're from England and, you know, wanted to be awkward, those level 8s or 9s in your science GCSE, and then your, is it still A-levels? Do A-levels still have A stars? I think so. I think A-levels are normal. I think it's just GCSEs. If that's wrong, I do apologise over in England. In Wales it's just always been a normal system, and that's what I've used, so that's why it's A star. But yeah, so if it is, then it's going to be A star or level 8 or 9 at A level, but I'm pretty sure it's A star. I'm just going to talk you through some things that I have done myself to get those top grades, but also what I've heard other people doing, and just some general advice that I think would be quite useful. So first of all, I think that I did do this really. I didn't do it to the best of its ability, but give yourself a target. And now what I mean by this is don't just target yourself, I want to achieve an A, I want to achieve a B, I want to achieve an A star. Because, okay, you're going to work towards that, but how about you look into your targets a bit deeper? And so rather than saying, I want an A star, actually look into the specification, look into the materials online to find out what the grade boundaries are for A stars typically. Is it typically 80% for an A star? You know, and give yourself something, a definitive number, a percentage, a UMS mark, anything to work towards. We don't actually know what's required of it, so you might want to say, yeah, I want an A star, but then you consistently get 60% in your grades, and sometimes you might work out and sometimes you might go higher, but you need to understand what exactly you need to know, and that means you have to know at least 80% of the knowledge to get anywhere near them. Second of all, I would just say keep up to date with everything. So in science the pace is pretty quick, especially in your A-levels, but even at GCSE level compared to other things. There's a new topic almost every lesson. And so what I would say is don't leave everything to last. And so what I would say is don't be leaving everything to last minute to try and understand it. If you're struggling in a topic or a particular unit, then you need to go and see teachers and ask them for help. You know, if you can't understand their perspective on things, go home and watch a video on it. Try and do something to make you understand that particular topic, unit that you're struggling with, because when it comes to revision, you don't want to be trying to understand things. It's more about when it comes to revision, you shouldn't be really trying to understand things. That should already be in there. You're trying to re-familiarise yourself with things. And if you have to go back through and start trying to understand topics back from the very first day, you're going to be struggling. And so what I would say is keep up to date. You don't have to revise all the way through, but just make sure you're keeping on top of things, you understand things, and you're getting through the work you have to do. When it comes to revision, I've often heard the saying quality versus quantity. And then what this means is you don't want to be doing 10 topics in 1 hour. That's not going to get you those top grades. If you revise a topic within 10 minutes and it's done and dusted, you're not going to revisit it again, then you haven't done it in enough detail. I'll soon much rather do 1 topic in an hour and make sure I go through it in the finer detail, understand every aspect of it, than to quickly glance over things and have to do it again 10 minutes later. This goes back to the thing where I was saying, don't be learning your knowledge, make sure you understand it. You need to be able to apply your knowledge to random bizarre situations, and if you quickly glanced over it for 5-10 minutes, then you're not going to be able to. And tying in with this really, I just want to make it clear that you don't want to overlook those 1 markers. Those 1 and 2 markers in the paper everyone can throw away because they just think, that's always a 1 mark question, I'm not even going to bother looking at it, I know it. But when you're under that exam pressure on the day, you don't want to be thinking, oh my god, I don't know what that 1 mark is, I don't know what that 2 mark is, because then 1 and 2 marks will add up on the paper. So you're going to want to make sure that even if the topic's only based on 1 mark questions, so the most of this topic is only 1 mark questions, the easy questions, you're going to want to do it. They're easy, they should be part of your revision, and you should be able to know the answer before you even finish the question really. And they could be the difference between getting the high grade and getting a lower grade. This point is not actually mentioned that much, whereas I don't understand why really. If you go online, you type in your exam board and type in science, chemistry, biology, physics, whatever, then there's this whole website out there for you, and it has everything from the specification to exam material, past papers, teaching guidance, so tells the teachers what to actually teach you, and that's actually pretty useful to use. There's also something on there called the examiner's report. And now what this is that the examiner, the chief examiner for the board, will look at the papers overall, look where the marks are lost and gained, and will say this report and publish it and say, right, this is where students were failing, this is the questions where they struggled, and more often than not, these will be the sort of basis for the questions for the following year. So say if everyone struggled on one particular topic, say space in physics, then everyone might then the following year the exam board might put out a really difficult question to do with space physics to see if there has been progression from the previous year when everyone struggled with it. And so you can use this website to your advantage, and I found it useful, particularly using the specification, the examiner's report. When I read the examiner's report, I could look back at the past papers I'd done for that year and say, I did exactly the same mistakes as them, or I didn't do that mistake. It gave me a sort of direction for my revision, if I want to do something different one time, rather than sitting there and doing more revision notes or anything else. I know I've said this pretty much in every single video I've done in how to revise, but past papers, past papers, past papers. Literally, they are so important, especially if you want those high marks. And it's not just about sitting there and doing them, and marking them and that's it, they're done, but it's also, you need to use them effectively. And so what this means is that you don't want to do just a past paper once, you want to do it more than once. I think I try to do at least every past paper twice, if not 3 times, because they're so useful to get to know the paper, to see what the common questions are. But what I found most useful is that after doing a paper, I would go back through it on a fresh copy and have a look at the mark scheme and then write out bullet points for model answers, and I would then read over these model answers, and hopefully these questions will appear in another format on different papers. And then this allows you to learn sort of what they're looking for in each question type. And so sometimes they might word the question a bit differently, and then that means that the context of it is different and they're looking for a completely different answer to a sort of different question. And you can get to learn all these different phrases they use, the common terminology. They set up a question in a certain way. You can learn, right, I know what answer they want for that. I know what points I'm going to get marks for here. Past papers are extremely useful, and you need to use them effectively if you want to get those high marks. Simply at this point, you just need to know it, the maths and practical side of sciences. If you want to get the high marks, there's going to be practical based questions in there, there's going to be maths based questions in there, and you just need to know how to do it for each science, what maths is involved, but also expect some basic math skills to come up, so graph work, rearranging formulas in physics particularly, magnification, all things like that. Some examples will give you specific percentages on how much the paper is going to be based on them. So say 10% of the marks might be maths and then 10% of the marks might be practical based. So that's 20% of the marks. And that means that if you don't learn them bits, then you're going to have to get full marks in all the other sections. And you need to incorporate them into your everyday revision in order to get used to them and prepare for them effectively for your exam. All this planning and revision for the exam is massively important, yeah. But at the end of the day, it's how you perform on the day. To get those top marks, it's not just about revising and preparing well, it's about performing as well. So, some general tips for the exam. Obviously, if you're going for high marks, you don't want to be leaving blanks. Obviously, that's just throwing away marks. So make a guess on every single question you get. You're going to want time to check over your answers. Now, even if you finish 5-10 minutes before, you want to go straight back and look through your answers. I was the type of person, I like to plan out to have at least 10-15 minutes at the end of the exam to go back through my questions, because I quite like to sit there for a couple of minutes, 2 minutes or whatever, to refresh, relax a little bit, then I'll go back through the paper and check every single answer, because the amount of times that you might miss off a unit, like you might miss out a certain step in a process, like you might just get something completely wrong, and you go back with a fresh mind and look over, then you'll notice everything. And this is really effective. This is really effective if you can find that time at the end of the exam to make sure you go over every question. It's massively important to have a good night's sleep the night before and to wake up in the correct way on the day of an exam. And you can go and check out my exam day routine video if you're interested in that. But just anything from having a good breakfast to being relaxed in the morning or getting ready or showered out for the exam, and that's all covered in my other video, so go and check it out. If you're going through a paper and it's either a calculation or a massively long question with loads of information, then as you're reading, you're going to want to highlight or underline somewhere in the question what the key points are, because you don't want to have to be looking through the paper every single time that you need to find an answer. So in particular physics calculations, it'd be quite useful to underline it, and then if it's a particular equation, then say acceleration, you can just put an A by it so you know that's the acceleration. Underlining just gets rid of you having to read the question every single time to find a piece of information. Underline something that looks important, and more often than not the question's based off that. I have just some general tips on getting those high marks and how to achieve an A-star or level 8 or 9, whatever, in your GCSE and A-levels. So leave a comment down below, let me know what you think. If you've got any other tips that you would give. And yeah, that's it.